Hey there, Knicks fans. He's back. The big guy is back. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for an emergency live stream for something that is really not an emergency. I think we all figured it was coming. It had been reported that it was coming. We hemmed and hawed a little bit last night about why it wasn't announced. We'll get into why we were maybe unsure and why, ultimately I think this got done. First and foremost, Jeremy Cohen, how much sleep did you get last night?
4 hours, 4.5 hours. I was up because a thought popped into my head about, something just didn't seem right with the cap. And I then got onto a train of thought and then saved it as drafts. And then I was in the car this morning, rifled it off there. And here we are.
Yeah.
What about you, John?
I'm better than I was an hour ago, which is when I laid down to take a nap after I was up very early, because shout out to my youngest. Second question, then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of this. So we should say, for anyone who doesn't know the news, Mitchell Robinson back. He's back. 4-year, $60 million contract. And the Knicks retain a player that could have walked to any of 29 other teams in free agency if he wanted to. We had rumors of Kyrie going play for $6 million. So I guess, given even the small mid-levels that were available, bunch of teams had their full non-taxpayer mid-level of just above $10 million. I think there were times this summer where we wondered, hey, would it be crazy if Mitch took that money to go elsewhere? He could have walked to anywhere else he wanted. The Knicks bet along the way, I think, that would not happen. They bet correctly. I will give them some flowers in a second. We'll talk about the number in a second, but most important question I'm going to start to ask you, is the Charlie Ward curse over?
I don't think it is. I think it should just be for first round picks. Yeah. And hopefully RJ breaks that within the next 6 months. Not even?
I thought you were going to say like 6 hours.
Well, that would be even nicer. 6 minutes, 6 seconds. It'd be great. I think that would be perfect. Oh, there you go. RJ, no, I'm kidding. It didn't happen. Yeah. But yeah, it's I'm a little surprised in that I would have thought his market wasn't the way it was. Clearly the Knicks and Mitch agreed to an amount, and it works out that way. Obviously, a couple things that's still unclear, right? This doesn't give us a lot of insight whether the Knicks are above the cap or below the cap. The Knicks can use Mitch's low cap hold to then exceed the salary cap, whether they are above the cap or below the cap. So that doesn't really matter. Obviously, questions that we're curious about. Is it fully guaranteed?
What's the biggest one of the questions for you?
Is it fully guaranteed?
For the fourth year. So if this is a team option on the final year, or if there's something like a $1 million guarantee on the final year, I don't know if it makes it a much better deal, but I personally would probably feel much better. Like whether the year in terms of declining, increasing, incentives, non-incentives, that's a little bit more semantics. Not that it doesn't matter. It does matter. But to me, does Mitch know he has 4 years in the bank, or does he know he has 3 years in the bank here?
Yeah, I'd say that's primary. That's the first one. The second one is it ascending or descending? So for context, the Mitch is eligible for 8% raises. If it's descending, then he could be making a little over $17 million next year. And then to go 17 to 15.7, 14.3, and then year 4 would be 12.9. So again, I would still guess it is descending. You also, CC and Flushing reminded me of this, which is great. You need to have cap space to include unlikely bonuses. So if the unlikely bonuses take you over the cap, you can't include it in the contract. And since the Knicks would be exceeding the salary cap either way, because they're not going to pay Mitch using cap space, there will not be unlikely bonuses in the deal. So that was a good call by him. Them.
There would not be unlikely bonuses in the deal because yes, okay. Good reading of the CBA there. So we're thinking that any incentives would have to be likely, right?
Yes.
Which would be probably games played based on his history?
It could be like how Randall's contract is structured: games played and then team performance,
Yeah,
or could also be individual performance if he's all all defense of some capacity.
for sure.
So it could be structured in that sense, but his cap hit would still be reflected on that, which is then why I still think it will be a descending contract.
Shout out people already, and I mean, God, we have almost 500 people watching. We have a bunch of people in the chat. We already got some super chats coming in, starting with Michael Aaron. Why do you guys look so tired? It's not like you had a 6-hour live stream last night. Oh, here we go. Look, Andrew's behind the scenes doing his thing. And Forgotten NYC, I'm with Benji. I think it's a massive overpay. Let's start there. I went through them. I mean, we talked about them as they were coming in last night. I went through them in the newsletter today. I'll just read them really, really quick in terms of these are the big man contracts that got signed yesterday. And these are not necessarily strictly centers, but these are guys who at least spend some of their time manning the middle, as it were. Hold on, I got it right here. Okay. So we had, these are all between $10 million annually and $12.5 million annually. Chris Boucher, Mo Bamba. I think Boucher was a little bit over 11. Bamba was just over 10. Claxton, 10 even for 2 years. Bobby Portis was 12.5. I'll get back to that one in a second. And Marvin Bagley was a little under 12.5. I think Bagley goes into a separate category because there's you're really weighing a lot of potential versus performance there. To me, okay, so Claxton and I guess here's the thing. If you want to say this is a justifiable payday, this is how I'm taking it. I'm curious what you think. If you want to say $15 million is justifiable, you could look at what these guys got and say Mo Bamba has never impacted winning anywhere close, even with the threes that he hits, anywhere close to the level that Mitchell Robinson has. Nick Claxton, much smaller sample size, hasn't proven it on, in a situation where he's not playing with on a really awesome team. Chris Boucher, again, could hit a three every now and then, although he didn't this year. Not anywhere near the defensive presence that Mitchell Robinson. None of these guys are perfect comps, with the exception of maybe Portis, who's a very different type of player. But Bobby Portis proved he can impact winning on a championship level, playing 20-something minutes a game. And you could easily argue that his number of 12.5 per year was an undermarket contract because it was the most that he could sign for with the Bucks because of the virtue of where he was with them and their cap originally. We don't have to get into it. And he got a player option, I think, or maybe it wasn't a player option on last year, but in any case, it was a full 4-year deal, which is, let's say Mitch is getting that. And then you could turn around and look at the Big Bob contract, Time Lord, Robert Williams, from last summer, the extension that he got at 12.5 a year, roughly, right? 12.5, 12.75, something like that.
Yes.
It was 51. Yeah. It was 451, 452. And say he signed that contract when he was, again, more theoretical than actual because he had just never put together a healthy season on the floor. This season, he obviously was very good, helped lead the Celtics to the finals. If Robert Williams was extension eligible this summer, you could argue he would have gotten closer to 4 for 80. So if you put all that together, we could look at this and say 4 for 60. Okay, it's fair, right? And yet there's another side of it I think makes some people a little bit more uncomfortable. So that's what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, the argument against it is just because it's market value, that doesn't mean you have to pay it at all. If for example, especially on the offensive side, if you view Mitch as someone who is integral in the sense that you need a lot of other guys to get him the ball, and once he gets it, he can create, but he's really just a play finisher, then I understand it. But the offensive rebounding, he adds value. It's just a matter of, can you find players for less value, or that will be less on the open market and work that way. So I do think it's a lot, but I'm still waiting to see the contract structure, the guaranteed amount, all that. I have seen a few people say, well, Mitch didn't make a lot of money with his first deal, so this is the Knicks overpaying as a thank you. No, this isn't baseball where there's no salary cap and you can get away with it a little bit more. This is essentially like this is a different front office. They did not draft Mitchell Robinson. So they're not thinking, hey, because the last front office did this, we're going to up the pay as a thank you. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's more just Mitch got paid, and that's that.
Yes. I think that's well said. Again, it's not, man, if all 4 years are fully guaranteed, it's so then I just presented the optimists argument. I'll present the downside. Let me get to a couple more super chats first. So this comes from Mild Cowboy Mo, longtime KFS. Bit of an overpay. I think that's what most people are going to feel about this. Bit of an overpay to fair, but definitely love Mitchell Robinson re-signing. This will be a breakout year for him, and he'll definitely lead us to the top 3 defense and all defense. We'll see if it's a breakout year for him. I think last year, in some ways, it wasn't that's the problem. Last year wasn't a breakout year for him because it was still a little bit too much inconsistency for my book. There were still a few too many times where I got on here after games and I was talking about, Mitchell Robinson wasn't the best Knicks center tonight, or I'm not sure really how much Mitchell Robinson impacted winning tonight. Might be a little bit by virtue of the position he plays, how he's used, et cetera, et cetera. They need him for their defense to be where they want it to be. I'll say that. I don't know if he's if he's ever going to be an all defense guy, but they need him to have the sort of defense that they want to have. Yeah. And then Jeremy E, since he and Julius hate each other, I don't know if they hate each other. I don't think they were talking for parts of last year. Can we take this as a positive sign of things to come, i.e. moving Randall? I don't know.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Another prevailing thought, and again, I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth because I know on one hand, we were talking about the Knicks getting Brunson, and then the fact that if you're trading for a star, especially someone like Donovan Mitchell, then ideally Brunson's the player that you're moving out. And we don't want to think about that because we just re-signed him. And now what I'm going to say is, does Mitchell Robinson have more trade value now that he's under contract, especially if it's a descending deal, than he did earlier or this past season when he was an unrestricted free agent with no matching rights available and teams would basically run the risk of losing him entirely? I don't know. I really don't know. But I understand, like, if they did 3 years, I'm sorry, if they did 4 years and 3 years were guaranteed and it was a descending contract at 8%, then I think Mitch would walk away with at most 3 years and $47 million. It's pretty good.
I think the trade value game with centers is dicey. Andrew, I can't see you, but I hope you have a drink in front of you. Zach and Kevin Pelton were talking on his pod after last night about how they were talking about Capella and Atlanta and their situation and how they signed him to an extension that I think paid him 2 more years at like 22 a pop.
Yeah.
And they did that betting that would make him a better trade candidate. And it's probably made him, if anything, a little bit of a worse trade candidate, or as that's like a net neutral deal at best. I don't think this is why they're giving Mitch this money.
It's not why, but there's a difference between giving Capella, 2 years and $45 million and giving Mitchell Robinson 4 years and $60 million, especially if that number descends over the years.
Yes.
Then you're talking about a very different value proposition.
I agree.
So that's and Andrew has wanted us to make this very clear. It was announced, I believe it by Shams, that the Dallas Mavericks have brought back Theo Pinson.
Yes. Congratulations to Theo. I still miss you. Look, here's the downside, and I think it was verbalized well by Benji last night, and I'll just steal his, and then we'll get to the next super chat. I'll just steal his point that he made, because I made a similar one in the past, so I don't feel too bad about stealing it. I want to be very clear in that I don't want to disparage Mitch. Mitch, by all indications, seems like he's a good kid. And I use that word intentionally. I'm a little bit trepidatious about giving a kid, he's a kid, who has never had any, he's never had any kind of money. And I don't really know that he's really felt what it's like to be like a quote unquote millionaire over the last few years. Yes, technically, was he a millionaire after he signed his first deal? Yeah, he wasn't. The amount of money that he actually saw and that was being given to him and this and that, you never know. You never know how someone who's never had any money is going to respond to a huge payday. I'm not terribly worried about it, but to me, when you're talking about someone who needs to continue to improve his game and continues to just kind of take his approach seriously and professionally and the whole thing, again, not a massive worry, but to me, that's the biggest downside risk, as opposed to like the Knicks shouldn't be investing in this archetype of a center, because I think we've seen in the NBA, like you could have a guy like this who could play 25 minutes a game and take you very far if you put a certain type of team around him.
Yes, and I also think that there's a very distinct difference between using cap space to give a center big money and going over the cap to give a center big money. If you don't anticipate needing significant cap space in the next few years, then it's fine, because it's a small, like the difference between your payroll and the percentage of Mitch's contract with the payroll versus the percentage of the salary cap is very different. Percentage of Mitch to the salary cap is going to be a higher percentage than the percentage of Mitch to the payroll. So you can be more flexible in that sense if you're operating over the cap moving forward, which I expect the Knicks to do this year. Again, jury's still out, but I think they're still above the cap. So I will sleep better at night tonight, not just because of how little sleep last night was, but also because of the fact that it's just a different cap situation that I'm a little bit more comfortable with than if the Knicks were using cap space to pay a center a large amount of money moving forward.
Yeah, that's well said. And look, at the end of the day, I do think that this is different than last summer when we sat here and we attempted as best we could to justify the Noel deal and well, really, it was the Noel deal. That was the big one. I think that's the real big counterpoint. And I understand this is more years and more dollars than Noel got. Three times as many dollars guaranteed and twice as many years. I would be very surprised if at some point we were sitting here having the conversation of, oh boy, it would be nice for the Knicks to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Damn, they're stuck with that Mitch contract. I'd be surprised if we were ever having that particular conversation. Let's just put it that way. And on that note, I know you got to go. Final thoughts on Mitch?
I usually stay for 10 more minutes.
Oh, okay, great. I didn't see that.
No, all good.
So let's keep going with some of the super chats. Next up, Andrew, is Justino Ventura. He has huevos. I hope I pronounced that well enough. He gets hurt, but goes back in. Can't question his heart and love of the Knicks. You know what? That's a good point. That's a good point. And now I'm going to say the thing nobody cares about and nobody wants to hear. The head coach is a fan of this player. And not just like what Mitchell Robinson could do. I think he is a fan of what Mitchell Robinson actually does on the court. I think he buys that Mitch has a little bit more upside. I think he probably appreciates the toughness. I think he probably appreciates the fact that Mitch makes life like you have to game plan for him. Ultimately, if you want to know why they gave him all this money, here's why. Opposing offenses have to game plan for Mitchell Robinson. They cannot do willy-nilly whatever they want on offense because he is there. And he is capable of really, when he's on, he's capable of fucking your shit up. Yeah, and he's tough. And look, Tibbs didn't want to get rid of him at the deadline. I think in retrospect, it was probably a good move because I don't think the market was there for something good, and they got him back. So, yeah.
Yeah, he almost dies every game and then comes back pretty much every game. So it's good. It's worth it.
It is. Bad eyesight. What's going on, man? Is it an overpay? Yes. But he outperformed his first deal almost immediately. I will say expectations changed with dollars. Can he get an 8-foot push shot and be a 70% free throw shooter? That is my hope. If we're running down the list of things I want to see Mitch change moving forward, just far and away. And if this was the only thing that ever changed, oh my God, would this be a contract I would be in love with? Can we stop with the games where he plays 20, 25 minutes and you feel like he just didn't make any kind of an impact? If we could just get rid of those games, and I'm not saying there were a ton of those this year, but if we could just get rid of those games, it shouldn't have been like once every 3 games where we were looking around and being like, Did Jericho Sims, 58th pick in the draft, outplay Mitch tonight? And we were sitting here and having those conversations. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think a leopard can't change his spots. A zebra can't change its stripes. I don't think Mitch is going to see drastic improvements from the line, but we'll see. I think he's very much the player he's been, and hopefully he makes improvements in the areas that are most necessary, especially setting screens. That'd be very nice.
Be good. Yeah.
So yeah, just keep improving. I don't want to see him taking shots on the perimeter. He's not even going to do it in the offense. Literally
he doesn't need to.
He doesn't. Just be a better version of the version you are right now.
Yeah.
Take your strengths and make them even more impressive.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with that. CT Pittman, what's going on, CT? Mitch has been underpaid for years. Even Noel made more money than Mitch. Yes, that is true. He's getting what he's owed. I don't have a problem with it at all. I mean, look, if that is a way for you, for anybody out there, and shout out to CT, he's always awesome, to kind of feel better about this, that's fine. And like, I wonder if there is because ultimately you need to sign a player to a contract that he is willing to sign. That sounds so stupid, but the player has to be willing to put pen to paper, right? Who knows what Mitchell Robinson's motivations are in terms of what he wanted to see as the final number, but maybe on his end, there was a part of this like, man, I haven't made any money. I want to feel like I'm valued after what I've given and how little I've gotten paid. And to just connect one final dot, I don't think it's an overstatement to say like there were a lot of times over the last 4 years where Mitchell Robinson was the most important player on the Knicks for a lot of fans when there was not a whole lot else going on that you could just feel good about and root for. So, maybe there's a little bit of that in here too.
Maybe. It's still higher than I would have liked. But I'll say this, though. I want to give a shout out to Jake Fisher because last year he had a ton of signings that were on the nose. Fournier, Burks, Noel. And this year he said 4 years, $60 million for Mitch. And then Ian Begley talked about it, and that proved to be true. So, yeah.
James Lee, say we trade more players, which will be filled by Mitch's contract. However, can this be exercised after utilizing the cap space created by the trades? Maybe an overpay, but he was underpaid for 4 years. I'm a little confused by what
I can take this one.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
So yeah, basically, Mitch is one of the last moves you make.
It has to be the last move, right?
Right, because if you did it first and the Knicks were a cap space team, he would take up cap space. But if they're operating above the cap, it's not as important. So for this, one of the prevailing thoughts could be we're going to overpay Mitch a little bit because then we don't run the risk of him going to another team and we have some other things that are in the works and he's gone. So by maybe paying him more, it was you're staying here, handshake agreement, don't look at any other suitors, let us do our thing, we'll go. Because if you're Mitchell Robinson, you could say, well, I mean, what happens if my market dries up and then you try to screw me over?
Yes. Yep.
That's probably what he wanted to avoid, and that I would understand why that was the case. So for this, it's basically like if the Knicks do go below the cap, you hold off on signing Mitch until later. If the Knicks are above the cap, it's probably not as important because it's just order of events.
If you stay above the cap, then it doesn't matter.
So the trading players and whatnot doesn't necessarily matter, but it could.
Interesting tweet from Keith Smith. Not a Mitch related thing, but I'll get this on before you get out of here. The Celtics are engaged with players and teams to use both the mid-level exception and the taxpayer mid-level exception. I'm sorry, I thought he was referring to. Oh no, is he referring to the? Yeah, no, he's referring to the traded player exception. That's TPE.
They have a few of them.
That's what I thought he was talking about. The TPE may take a while because the trade market is stalled while everyone waits on a KD deal. No one wants to give up a player and find out they traded salary matching in a KD trade. That doesn't apply to the Knicks, but their traded player exception was linked to Alec Burks once upon a time. And then yesterday you talked about the possibility of bringing Derrick Rose into that, correct?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think to be clear, I do not think Derrick Rose is going anywhere at this point.
Probably, potentially not. Here, so here's the thing. I tweeted about this morning, but I had a thread of how it is possible because of the fact it was rumored that the Kemba Walker deal would be its own thing, and then Noel and Burks would be another thing, and you'd get 2 traded player exceptions. But then that doesn't help you with Brunson. But because they haven't announced the trades, it leads me to believe that it will be one trade, because we knew that the Knicks, we knew that there was interest in Alec Burks for a lot of teams. We knew that other teams had interest in Noel, especially the Clippers.
Yes.
And the Celtics were one of the teams that was interested in Burks with the TPE.
Yeah.
So my prevailing thought was that the Knicks, what they decided to do a couple days ahead of time was they were comfortable taking a loss on the value they would have gotten from Burks, which would have been better than what they got. And Noel would have actually generated them something. Because again, if the Clippers valued him in such a way, they wouldn't have been expecting it. So this prevailing thought of like Noel's contract was so bad, the Knicks needed to attach Alec Burks to make it feel better. I don't think that's the case. In fact, what I think is the case is the Knicks bundled them together. They're going to throw Kemba in that too, create a traded player exception that's just large enough to squeeze in Jalen Brunson's contract. And then they can do a sign and trade with the Mavs. And if they do that, Fournier can't go to Dallas, but 2 players can, either Cam or Rose. And my guess is it wouldn't be Rose, because if you're the Mavs, you can just sign Goran Dragic, and you're not maybe going to get better production, but you're going to save a lot of money in luxury taxes because it's a very big difference. And so maybe if you're Dallas, do you consider Cam and Dragic over Rose by himself? And then there's the prevailing thought. I've been saying prevailing a lot. It's sleep deprivation. Then there's the thought of if the Knicks are trying to work something out, because they could still just sign Brunson using cap space if they really wanted to, and just shave off a few million, and you could still do Brunson, Hartenstein on the same contract, and Sims for the minimum. So maybe what the Knicks are trying to do is, instead of doing a Brunson for Cam, sort of trade, it's we'll take Brunson and then we'll give you a TPE, and then we'll trade you Cam into that TPE for something of value. And if you're the Knicks, the something of value that you're going to want is something around what you got for Cam in the first place. So maybe the Knicks are trying to unlock the 2023 pick and then get a protected 2025 pick from the Mavs, and basically say, this is your way of getting a young talent around Luka. You can believe in him. He's basically, like, on the surface, Cam is very much an ideal pairing with Luka. Whether he grows into that player, not entirely sure, but they have no other good talent under the age of 25, not named Luka Doncic. So that's just my theory with how they might operate. But that's with Burks and Rose and the TPE and Smith. That's kind of what brought me to that thought.
I'm happy you stayed on for that. All right. One more super chat before you have to
go?
More,
and I'll head out.
Kevin Wilson, what's going on, Kevin? Haven't the Knicks sent people to work with him over the offseason? Maybe they're working on ways for him to improve his offense. I'm not. Maybe has it been reported that I know they sent people last offseason? It's been a busy last few months, but whatever. Let's assume that they have. I hope so. But that's, again, one of my concerns with Mitch is he keeps working with this guy, Marcel Scott, who I don't know Marcel Scott from a hole in the wall, but it doesn't seem like he runs the most regimented offseason training program. And that's the guy mostly that Mitch works with. And what is he doing with his time in terms of trying to improve? Yeah. I mean, do I think that they're out there working on ways for Mitch to be like Hartenstein light, so they could, functionally run like a different offense with the A unit and the B unit? I would be surprised if they tried to use Mitch in that way, but we'll see. I wouldn't mind.
I don't think they need to use Mitch drastically different. I just want him to be able to facilitate, not to a Hartenstein level, but just a little bit more. And here's the beauty of it. If you have Brunson, if you have RJ, and it depends what they do at the 2 and at the 4, but if you have more playmaking and situational awareness, and you're using Mitch as someone to just finish, and that's his responsibility, then you don't have to make his game that much more multidimensional than it is. Just improve on the margins, improve your strengths, and you should be good. And I do wonder what the pick and roll does look like. Again, I don't know how much better he'll be with Brunson there, but I would imagine it's small enough, because the Knicks still ran a decent amount of pick and roll with Mitch, but maybe they do around the same amount, but just more efficiently, because Brunson's better than Kemba or Burks running the pick and roll last year.
And even if this is simple as Mitch learned, like here's you know what I would sign for in terms of offensive improvement? Mitch making a kick out pass to a corner every now and then on a consistent basis when it's there. Like something like that. It's a small thing. But anyway. Jeremy, thank you for hopping on. You're the man. Andrew, hello.
See you guys.
Later. Hi guys. Bye, Jeremy. Hi, John. What I miss?
Yo, your mic's not selected. See, I told you.
It happened again. Hold on a second. Thank you for telling me this time.
What did you miss? Ian Begley just tweeted out that extension. I can't hear the little video, but I'm just reading his tweet. That extension negotiations between the Knicks and Mitchell Robinson were a bit rocky at times during the season, but he established himself as an imperative part of Tom Thibodeau's defense over the course of the year. That's a good thing. I'm not surprised that they were rocky, which is again part of why I'm still a little bit surprised at the number. But I want to see the details. I want to see the details on the contract. That's all. All right, some super chats. Perry Eckhart, thank you for your contribution. Appreciate it, man. Anthony Sixto, how does the Hartenstein signing help out Mitch? We now have a backup with nice offensive tools and provides a nice change of pace and contrast, as well as some competition to drive him. Yeah, I mean, I think the Hartenstein piece of this is interesting. And there will be people who will say, oh, look at that. The Knicks paid a guy who's not as good as the backup that they just got 4 times as much money as the backup that they just signed. Because I think there is it's not crazy to look at Hartenstein and say he's a better player on paper than Mitch. The difference is we've seen Mitch do it more for longer over the course of 4 years. Not always consistently, but he definitely has a longer track record than Hartenstein. And I think Hartenstein, and there's also another part of it which I haven't spoken about yet, but I will speak about before I get off of here, which is like, it's meaningful for this franchise to get a rookie back here on another deal. And I don't want to ignore that. I like the change of pace aspect of it. I don't know if Hartenstein's going to drive Mitch, but like, I could definitely see games where Hartenstein plays closer to 30 minutes and Mitch plays closer to 20. If, like we talked about last night, he really has it going. I think I'll say this. I'm comfortable with that as the center pairing. I'm a lot more comfortable with that as the center pairing than I was with Mitch and Noel. And that I probably would have been even with Mitch and Sims. Because I don't know if Sims is ready for that kind of role. Maybe he will be in a few years. We'll see. Who knows? I just said a minute ago, I don't think this is a contract you sign to trade it. And at the same time, now I'm thinking to myself, well, if Sims keeps improving and Hartenstein, shows that he's ready for more than just a backup role, maybe that's your path to dealing Mitch for value. We'll see. James Lee, Hawks, 3 first-round picks for DeJounte Murray. Durant asks for a trade. A little LOL Hawks there for you. I like it. Man, I'm very happy the Knicks did not make that trade for DeJounte Murray, and I'm a big DeJounte Murray fan. But that's your all-in move. And the Hawks are getting criticized for making an all-in move, and they're further ahead than the Knicks. They have their star. But they're not even there yet. If the Knicks made that deal, it would have been a gross miscalculation. Kevin Danishevsky. Kevin, we've talked a lot about Mitch. I'm curious to see what this is going to be. With Brunson, Mitch, Randall, and Barrett, the spacing seems off. You think? So it seems to me like a Randall trade is coming. I'm wondering if the Spurs are a fit. Goodness. I'd be surprised. If Randall gets traded. I've said it for a while now. I'll maintain that. I know the spacing seems off. That said, we saw this team win 10 more games than it lost a season ago. We saw this team win 10 more games than it lost a season ago, because or with some less than ideal spacing. That Elfrid Payton obviously couldn't shoot at all. They had RJ hitting knockdown threes. They had Randall hitting threes at a very high rate. And they had Mitch. Now RJ's still there. Brunson's there. He's a point guard who could shoot, even if he doesn't really want to shoot. If there's just regression back to the mean for Randall and he could just hit 36% from the corners, I think that would be a significant step up. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just getting text from Andrew saying his internet just went out. If it's not back in 5 minutes, I'm going to tell you to go live from your computer. I don't know if he knows that we're still running. Am I still running live? I don't know. I think I am. Anyway, let's keep it going until Andrew tells me to stop. Busy. Who were we bidding against? Why 60? That is a great question. I don't think we were bidding against anyone. Oh wait, apparently hold on. I don't think we were bidding against anyone, but yeah, you never know. Apparently, this is great. Andrew's texting me and telling me to go live from my computer. So I think I think come on, Andrew. What do you he's assuming that I'm not live right now, but I think I'm live. This is great podcasting, by the way, and great live streaming. I'm literally going on my phone and being like, am I live right now? Hold on. Because I can't even see anything. Yep. No, I'm live. Okay, great. Thank you. I had to go on my phone. Great. See, this is Andrew playing a trick on me, knowing that I am the least technologically sound person on the face of the earth. Thank you, Andrew. Anyway, it was a great moment in Knicks Film School history right there. Okay, I'm going to keep going with the super chats. We got a lot more to get to. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with our technical difficulties. Okay, next up. Samir Soriano. I trust the Knicks front office ability to judge character. They have to believe that Mitch won't mishandle his payday. I think you have to trust the front office's ability to judge character if you're okay with this move. I'm also thinking of look at the guys that they've drafted, their work ethic, what they've meant to the franchise since they've come in, building around Barrett, Brunson, obviously, all those things. They have to feel good about the fact that Mitchell Robinson can continue to fit in with a bunch of guys who want to come in and work their asses off. That's a great point. Really good point there. Anthony Strano, congrats on 500, fellas. Who gets dealt first? Fournier, Rose, or Cam? One's got to go to make the rotation work. It's not going to be Rose. Or at the very least, I would be shocked if it was Rose. I'll say that. If I was betting on Fournier or Cam right now, here's the thing. I'll say Cam. Why do I say Cam? A couple of reasons. One, as of right now, we have no indication that Brunson is a sign and trade. Maybe news comes out that it is, and the teams were still working on it, and that's why it wasn't announced as such. I am going on the assumption at this point that it was not a sign and trade, and the scenario that Jeremy spoke about a few minutes ago is not what unfolded, and instead, Evan Fournier is still on this team. If Evan Fournier is still on this team, he's still making $18 million next year. There's not a lot of homes for him that makes sense unless you're just trading him for another player, salary for salary. And I don't see the Knicks doing that, because then you're talking about a whole value proposition, and I don't think they want to sell low on him. The Mavs sign and trade angle of it was unique because beggars can't be choosers, and I would have thought that they'd be desperate enough to be like, yeah, we'll take Fournier instead of nothing. So for all those reasons, I think Cam is the one who gets dealt. I don't think Tibbs loves him. I don't think he has a spot in the rotation. And his salary number, is low enough that it's easy to move. Okay. Kevin Danishevsky, also with 3 centers here, is Taj definitely back? That's a good question. I mean, they carried, I know Sims was on a 2-way, but they carried Taj last year along with Noel and Mitch. So maybe not the best roster expenditure just from a roster. Because you only get 13 spots on the active roster every night. Now, obviously, Taj doesn't have to be on the active roster. If they keep Sims on a 2-way, we still don't know, but he's probably going to be converted. I don't know. Maybe he's not definitely back. We'll see. Matt Smith, Macri, any rumblings on the Donovan Mitchell front? Also, sorry if I missed this yesterday, but what do we think about starting 3 lefties? If Mitch is ever hurt and they start Hartenstein, that's 4 lefties. Seems suboptimal. I don't care about the lefty thing. And just to finish my point from before I got confused about whether I was actually still live streaming or not. They have gotten around crappy spacing before. So I think they could still probably get around like having 3 lefties. As far as the Donovan Mitchell, no, there's no Donovan Mitchell rumblings. I don't expect there to be any Donovan Mitchell rumblings. I don't think he's gonna get traded this offseason. I am curious what Utah does, though. Fern Rodriguez, with the Mitch move now done, if the Knicks have one more move left during free agency, either trade or signing, what do you think it will be? Not sure it's significant, but significant. Look, any move they make is significant. Look, they have, if everything has gone according to the way it's been reported, they have their room mid-level exception left to spend, which is like 5.2 or 5.4, I think, $1 million. At this point, I'd be shocked if they're not. It's just, look at how their team is set up. Unless there are other moves happening, which I don't see. I don't see a Randall trade coming. The player you're signing to that exception is probably not someone you're counting on being in the rotation. So I don't know. Maybe they just give Taj the room, and I also, I don't know. Something still doesn't pass the smell test for me, and that's what Jeremy and I were talking about last night, and I'll maintain that today. Jessica, what's going on, Jessica? Good morning, guys. Jeremy, now that Mitch is signed, hey, here we go. So I think Andrew's kind of back. Now that Mitch is signed, what's more likely? We hear about RJ's extension first, or we hear about another trade, Evan or Randall? If you're asking me what happens first, RJ extension, Evan trade, or Randall trade, I will bet RJ extension because I think RJ's extension gets done before the year starts. And I think that Randall, if he gets traded, will get traded after the season starts. So RJ extension, then I would bank on a Randall trade at some point, although I don't know when. Jake Seelig, could the Mitch contract have an option plus incentives? Absolutely. We don't know for sure, but it's possible. I would hope it has an option on the last year. SP Gorilla, thank you so much for the contribution, SP. I could see many nights where Isaiah plays better than Mitch. Yeah, we were talking about this before, especially with his offensive ability. What happens then? Isaiah is an above-average defender with better offense than Mitch. Houston, do we have a problem? Thank you for the generous contribution, SB. It's a good problem to have unless Mitch is just bad. If Mitch plays to a level that's 5 to 10% better than he did last year, and Hartenstein, it just comes in and blows you away, it's great. It's a great problem to have. I'm not worried about it. I think, I don't know who the first person was to say this, but God knows many people have said it before. Sometimes guys are backups for a reason. Sometimes guys are just their role is best suited as 15 to 20 minutes off the bench playing against backups. We've seen it with the Knicks where guys have been great backups and then they come in and it doesn't always translate to the same level of production as a starter. I think if anything, this organization has shown us that if someone excels as a backup role, they are not going to then turn around and be like, ooh, hey, here's a starting role. It's not how they operate. Aaron Vasquez, when you say you want to get rid of Mitch's non-impact games, what impact qualities would you add? Not just get better at what he's good at. I'll be very clear about this. I felt like there were too many games last year where Mitch would have games where he just wasn't a presence. I know that is not a it's not high level basketball analysis, but like you would watch him on some nights. And I feel like there were 5 or 6, maybe more nights like this last year where you'd watch him and you'd say, oh, that's the most impactful player on the floor. Like I would have to go back and see what my end of the year newsletter stars standings were. But I'm fairly certain Mitch finished pretty high up in there. And I know for a fact there were a lot of games where I gave him the 3-star player award. But the problem was there were a lot of games where I gave him the 3-star player award where he was, I thought, the most impactful Knick. And then there were a lot of games where I did not think about giving him any of those designations at all because he was just kind of out there and, not fully engaged. I don't know how else to put it other than that. I just want to see him be engaged. Maybe not every minute he's on the floor, but 90% of those minutes or 95% of those minutes. I don't feel like we're there yet. Continuing along, James Lee, because Macri mentions Mitch's kick-out pass. Jericho Sims does some occasional and also impressive kick-out passes. I wonder anybody saw this too. Yeah, Sims is and I mentioned this in the newsletter too. Tibbs said at the end of last year, I think he was unprompted when he was talking about the young players on the team. He out of nowhere, he was like, yeah, and I think we're going to get more playmaking from Sims next year. That was the thing he chose to point out that he thinks Sims has more upside with. So that's why it wouldn't be crazy to me if Mitchell Robinson was part of a trade at some point in the next couple of years, even though I don't think this was a contract that they signed to trade it. And let me take this as a good opportunity to speak on something that I've been wanting to talk about and I haven't gotten time yet. It matters that a guy that this team drafted is now playing for another contract for this team. Whether he's here for a year or a year and a half or 2 more years. And I know I think I've made this point before, but I'll make it again when I was, doing my top 75 Knicks of all time list for the newsletter this year. It's amazing how rare it is that guys came here and guys produced here and they stuck around for more than 4 or 5 years. It's just not a lot of guys. This century, you have Carmelo Anthony as a guy who was here for 7 years. And then you have to, and I'm talking about the last 20 years. And then you have to go through okay, Jamal Crawford was here, I think, for 5 years. Was Marbury here? I think Marbury was here for 5 years. Lance Thomas was here, I think, for 5 years. Jared Jeffries in total, I think, was here for 5 or 6 years. It's just not a long list. And then you have to go back to the 90s where you got obviously Oakley and Ewing and some of those guys. But even legends, Anthony Mason was not here for all that long. So to have a guy back, and he's a guy who people wanted back, and we wanted back, and I think he wanted to be back. That means something for this franchise, more so than almost any other franchise in the league. Mike Sharp. Been loving all the free agency content, gents. Keep up the great work. Shout out to Theo getting money from Dallas. Yeah, guaranteed NBA contract, baby. Get your money, Theo. You deserve it. Thank you for the contribution, Mike. Nick DeSimone, what's going on? How did the Knicks manage the fact that Obi, Mitch, and Jules Hart are better tandems unless Randall is moved? Randall or Mitch off the bench seems unlikely. Yeah, they're neither. That's not happening. This is a Tibbs question. This is a show me what's up, Tibbs. Because, again, it's been referenced before, the assist stats in terms of how many times Julius Randle passed to Mitchell Robinson last year. And, again, we're talking about Julius Randle, a guy who averaged 5 assists a game this year. He averaged 6 assists a game the year before that. He could pass it. We know he could pass it. Never passing it to Mitchell Robinson. Is that a personal thing? I don't know. But those two did not make beautiful music this season. I think that's another reason why Nerlens Noel was back, by the way. I think Julius liked playing with Noel more than he did with Mitch. What does Tibbs do? Does he do more staggering? Does he get more creative? Does he pull Mitch early and put Hartenstein in and then play Julius for a longer stint? Does he, and like, how about this? We're sitting here talking about Hartenstein and Mitch as the center options. And like, how many minutes is Hartenstein going to play? He's a really good backup, this and that. Andrew, I can't see you because your computer crashed, but I know you hear me. Motherfucker, you're going to be right again. Because where are the Obi at center minutes? Where are they? They're the same place that your internet went a few minutes ago.
Tell me about it.
That's where they are.
Yes. We have one more super chat, by the way, so we're almost done.
I had to say that. Fred Katz came on the pod last week and said for his bold prediction, shout out hashtag Obi Avengers, that one way or another, Obi Toppin was going to play 25 minutes a game this year. I don't know if it's going to be 25, especially with the Hartenstein signing, but he needs to play more. And I'll say 20. He needs to play 20 a game. That leaves 28 for Randall. Can Tibbs get creative in terms of who's playing with who? We'll see. Hush Zoo. What's going on, Hush? Thanks again for last night, again for today. Oh my God, it's still morning. It's not even afternoon yet. It's not afternoon yet. Wasn't there people on the front office that were big fans of Cam during the 2019 draft and even willing to trade down for him? I don't get why not give him a shot. That's a very fair comment. And for where the Knicks are at as a team right now, where they are not contending for anything, they're not contending for a championship, they're not contending for home court in the playoffs. They are contending for a play-in berth. If you are that team and you have a player like Cam Reddish who's super talented on your squad, you should give him a chance. Objectively speaking, you should give him a chance before you give it. Now, who are the vets? Who do you want to give him a chance over? That's the thing, right? Is like, right, you know, it has to be Fournier, right? It's basically you're saying trade Fournier. And if they do, I will co-sign for that 1,000% if that means it gives Cam a shot. I would just be surprised if it happened, because that would mean living with the bumps and because he has not yet shown the ability to be a contributor to winning basketball. All due respect to the flashes that we saw, and boy, the flashes were enticing last year because they don't have anybody on the roster that does what he does.
Couple things. First of all, is my mic selected?
Yeah, it is.
Good. Okay. Awesome. So I'm all the way back. In response to the Cam thing, him playing over Fournier would also somewhat affect the Quickly minutes, because I think Quickly's going to be your backup too. As of right now, I think we've all kind of factored in that since Brunson and Rose are going to be here, barring injury, Quickly's your backup too, first man off the bench, whatever his role is going to be. So on those nights when Fournier is 2 for 11 in the third quarter and Quickly will play the rest of the game, that's where Cam would still not find minutes. I agree with you, though. They need to find a way to, if he's going to be on the roster, he can't just be the 11th man. Cam Reddish can't just rot again out of the rotation.
And like, it's easy to say, well, if you're going to keep Derrick Rose is going to miss a bunch of games. So then Quickly slides over to the backup point guard and whatnot. You know what I don't want to see? I don't want to have a fucking Tom Thibodeau press conference week 1 and hear the word situational used with Cam Reddish. That is not where this cannot go there. That's either shit or get off the pot. Either trade him or he's in the rotation. Because, and like, by the way, if Rose does miss games, I think that's actually, here's who you can do that with. You can do that with Deuce McBride.
Mm-hmm.
If Rose misses 15 or 20 or 25 games this year, great. There's your Deuce minutes. That's what Deuce is ready for right now. Cam, he's either here or he's not here, like fully. So it's not like, oh, Rose is out tonight, so we'll slide quickly over to the 1, and then there's where Cam gets his minute. No, no.
Yeah, all the projections again, this is the sample size of like the comments and the Twitter users that have said that Cam is projected to be a starter potentially. I don't think the Knicks view him as that. And I think we talked about this a few hours ago on our live stream. The Quentin Grimes of it all. I actually think they'd go to him as a starter before that, and then Cam could be your backup 3. I actually think that there's a role for him there where it's just your job is instant offense against backups off the bench. I don't hate that. If he excels in that, awesome,
But that's what they should be doing.
Yeah, I agree.
Evan Fournier is good. He's a lot better than he gets credit for. There's no reason he's on this team right now. And quite frankly, there's no reason Julius Randle's on this team either.
Well, that's the other part. As far as me being right about no Obi at the 5 or Randle at the 5 or them playing together minutes, this is just another reminder that they're eventually going to have to choose between the two, and hopefully they choose correctly in the not too distant future.
We know what they want to choose. It's a matter of how they can choose it and when does the choice come down.
I don't see where they coexist, and if there's 23 Fred Katz Obi minutes, then I don't see how Randle is here for that, and it's like functional. You know what I'm saying? So that'd be my thought. Also, just producer comments, 900 people watching here on a Friday morning.
Oh, anyone watching that's not subscribed, subscribed. Our march to 10,000 continues.
Please, we're like 350 shy.
You've turned this into a quest for me too.
Yes.
Good,
okay. Good.
You could hear my daughter in the background, who I need to go take care of. This has been great. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for the contributions. Thank you everybody for your comments in the regular chat. We will, if anything else happens, we'll go live again. Because I am not doing anything this weekend, and that I will just leave it at that. Enjoy your barbecues, everybody.
Yes.
Right, Andrew. Yes. Anything else? I forget.
Well, I'll just add that if you missed our live stream last night, all 6 hours, they're still kind of relevant. There's some whether or not to extend Mitch. What's up?
Okay, well, real brief. Zach LaVine, 5-year, $215 million max contract to return to the Chicago Bulls with a player option in year 5.
Oh,
so that was the last shoe.
Mm-hmm.
That was the last big fish out there that could have potentially taken up someone's big time cap space. No one ever thought that he was going anywhere. This summer is yet more proof. Free agency does not exist anymore. Free agency is dead. There was never any appreciable moment where either Bradley Beal or Zach LaVine or James Harden or Kyrie Irving, I guess, were conceivably going to go and just sign with another team.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I wanted to just
that's breaking news. I know a lot of people were interested in that.
I was waiting on it.
I was curious. I mean, here we are sitting here talking about Grimes or Cam or Fournier starting. Yeah, maybe there was a Zach LaVine plan in there somewhere. I'll just add that for those of you that missed our live stream last night, it is available to rewatch in full. I am 4.5 hours in on timestamps, and all 6 parts are available on the KFS podcast feed if you prefer to listen that way. I will, when I get off of this, I'm going to go finish the timestamps for that and then get this also on the podcast feed. And just another thank you to everybody for 500 episodes of KFS. If I could ask you to push us over the top a little bit more, as John mentioned, we're like 350 shy of 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. So yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah, that's it.
Also, we now have moderators in our chats that help us hide all the spam and stuff. Thank you to the moderators of this video. We appreciate it. Okay, I'm officially done. Sign off, John.
All right, everybody, enjoy your holiday weekend. We'll be back maybe to talk to you soon at some point. But if not, enjoy everything, and we'll talk to you later.